limitations, the way that people manage all of their commitments nowadays. But I'd like to start by welcoming everyone. My name's Linda. I'm the, if you don't know me, I'm the Program Development Manager here at TIC SA. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm coming to you from Tantanya, which is on Kaurna country. And I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians and pay my respects to elders past and present. At TIC SA, we recognise and celebrate the diversity of all Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of South Australia. And I extend that respect and acknowledgement to the custodians of where you're joining us from today. And just looking at who's logging in, there's people coming from everywhere, and we've even got one of our presenters from, I think are you on Gadigal country up there in Sydney, David? That would. And we've got Jody and Larisi who are joining us from Tantanya as well. Our In Conversations program is a very short webinars delivered as part of our business development program. Many of you might be familiar with them, but I'm just going to run through the housekeeping, which is please keep your microphone on mute. We are recording today's session. We do love conversation and chat and all of that sort of stuff. So if you do have questions, we've got 2 presentations today, but if you do have questions, just pop them in that chat function and we will get to them, or we might even have some time at the end. We've got quite a small group, so you possibly even be able to come off mute and ask the question direct. As I said, today's session's a little bit different from our normal. But essentially our In Conversation seminars or webinars, I should say, are around providing tourism operators with insights and advice that can help you in your business planning and operations. And I'm really excited about today's session because we've got 2 really outstanding presentations to help you recruit the right staff for your business. And we know that recruitment of staff, particularly as we're coming into, for many, a peak season, summer, all of that sort of stuff, can be a real challenge. And, you know, many of you are small businesses, and so finding people that are going to be the right fit, both culturally, but also from a skill set, or who bring something new into your business to help your business grow, is a really exciting thing to do, but it can also be really daunting and overwhelming as well, because of what happens if you get it wrong and all of the recruitment challenges, you know, the cost and the time and all of that sort of stuff. So we've got hopefully two great solutions to help you think differently about who you might be recruiting and how you might be recruiting. And we're joined today by Jody and Larisi from Study Adelaide and David from GoTo to really have a bit of a deep dive into easy to implement low-cost solutions to connect you to potential employees. They've got some presentations. I'm just going to stop waffling on and we're just going to get straight into it. And I'll start off with Jody, who is the Communications and Engagement Manager with Study Adelaide. Many of you may have heard about Study Adelaide. They're really the key body that represents the interests of universities or tertiary educations, but also, more importantly, international students coming into South Australia. Jodie's got a long career in marketing, communications and stakeholder management in industries across a diverse sort of sector of industries such as arts, major events, finance, and for the last 6 years, international education. So she's really passionate about this space. She's really passionate about international students and seeing them succeed. And this has led her to create Study Adelaide's Job Shop, which is a regional careers and the regional careers tour program, and bring all this together into some solutions for you. And I'm going to just hand straight over to Jody and Larisi, who are going to talk about it in a much more coherent way than what I've just introduced you.
Thank you so much, Linda, and hello everyone. It's great to be here today. My name's Jody and this is my colleague Larisi. Together we look after some programs at Study Adelaide, and I'm really happy to be here so that we can talk to you about one of those, which is Job Shop. I might also talk about careers tours now that you've mentioned that, Linda, because if you've got some regional members online, they might be interested to know about those quickly as well.
We do have many regional members online.
Yeah, great. So, because Job Shop may not work for your regional members because it is a a part-time and casual platform. But anyway, let me get started, and then I can run through that. As Linda mentioned about this being a smaller session, we really welcome questions on the way through. Like to keep things informal, kind of people that we are. So I'll start right from the beginning and start sharing my screen. I can see that, so hopefully everyone else can. So hi and welcome from Study Adelaide. Oops, now we're not moving. There we go. Just a quick intro about Study Adelaide. We're the state government's destination marketing and student support agency. There are equivalents of us in every state and territory. We're a little bit different though. We're part government funded and part member funded. And our members, which are about 60 members, range from high schools to ELICOS providers, vet providers and higher education. So our reach is beyond the 3 public universities here in Adelaide. And so we can capture all those students, which is great. We have 3 main mandates. One is the destination marketing piece, so marketing to international students that are already onshore in Australia, but also in key markets overseas. We have students from around the globe, in fact. Student engagement is a big part of what we do, and that is about ensuring students have a rewarding experience while they're here in Adelaide. And part of that is this employability piece, where we know students, a huge number of students will look to work while they're studying on a part-time or casual basis. And industry advocacy, and again, that taps into the employer space, because we want students to, if they want to stay in Australia, which a large number do, to be able to get work here once they graduate. So yeah, as I mentioned, we've got students from across the globe, students from actually around 130 countries this year. Some people are surprised at how many students we actually do have. Smaller number than where David's living in Sydney, obviously, but enrolments by the end of last year was over 43,000. That doesn't translate exactly to the number of students, because they might be enrolled in 2 courses, like English and another course, for example. But we know it's around 40,000 students that we're aiming for by the end of the year, which is awesome. So the recovery post-COVID has been great. Another thing that's happened post-COVID is our top 10 source markets has changed, and you can really see this reflected in the streets of Adelaide around the institutions. So India is now our number 1 market. China's moved to number 2, but you can see the great diversity just in our top 10, with students from Brazil and Colombia coming into our top 10 for the first time, which is fantastic. Philippines as well. So you know, great opportunities for your industries. I thought I'd also highlight the top 5 fields of study and where the current enrolments mainly are. You can see there number 2s in tourism, food and hospitality. So there's a lot of students that you guys can tap into, because they're studying it professionally and obviously interested in working in their fields. But with other students as well that are looking for part-time work, there's a huge number of students available. Oops, let me get to major intakes. Students arrive all year round. For the universities that are still on 2 semesters, the main intakes are February and July. There are some courses that are trimesters, but for the most part, the big intakes are February and July. Vet students arrive quarterly or monthly, with different intakes that they have. ELICOS students, which is English language students, arrive weekly. So you can see there's always new students arriving in Adelaide. The working cap, which I'm sure you're all very aware of, that is 48 hours per fortnight during study periods. And it's unlimited though during study breaks. So when you're coming into your peak summer season, students are also in study break. So it's a good opportunity to offer them more hours. So one of the things we just wanted to quickly highlight is there are some issues with students getting employment, particularly when they first arrive, and it's that lack of a local network, particularly in Adelaide. It's very much who you know with some jobs, and a big one is that not understanding the local recruitment process, and so that having a resume that's suitable for Australian applications, or not understanding what a cover letter is, or even knowing of its existence, and so not including a cover letter in applications, and then the lack of experience. One thing that is a surprise to some employers is there's a lot of countries where, unlike Australia, where our teenagers tend to start part-time jobs around the age of 14, 15, 16, and it's quite a normal thing to do. In a lot of countries, that's not a normal thing. As a matter of fact, in some countries, you can't work until over the age of 18. So with young students arriving here, they may not have had the opportunity to work before because they couldn't, or it's not an expectation in their countries. But that's not to hold you back from employing them, obviously. So just a lot of differences between different countries. So we started Job Shop at the start of last year when we realised that we were expecting a big intake of students once borders opened, and at the same time, a lot of industries, particularly your industry, were struggling to find skills. So we thought, well, here we can do a bit of a matchmaking service and connect people up. But because of those barriers, we had to think, well, how can we make it easier for students as well as employers? So Job Shop started. It was the intention of it was a 4-month period just for that intake, but it was so popular and successful, we've kept it going. It's a platform that offers part-time and casual vacancies to international students. We call it an industry partnership. It's unique in Australia. We've been waiting for all our competitors in the other cities to also do the same, but I think because of the size of Adelaide and our scale and the fact that everyone likes to collaborate so much, it's still unique to us. We have around 23 or more companies. Some companies come and go, turn off their ads and turn them back on again, and now cover different sectors. We originally started with hospitality and like the fast food sector, and have now continued to grow into other sectors, including aged care and manufacturing and local government, all sorts of things. There have been hundreds of jobs advertised through Job Shop and hundreds of international students employed. For example, Adelaide Venue Management employed 220 students in about 10 months last year, but other smaller companies have also taken on students. So it's perfect for when you have a lot of roles available, or you constantly need a pool of students. So for like the event, people that run events, for example, and have this requirement to have casual staff come in at different times. So it's free for employers and students, and we promote it every time we get a new employer on board. We promote that via our Study Adelaide newsletter, which goes out to around 28,000 students on a regular basis. It's either a weekly or fortnightly newsletter, and through our social media channels. So we've got everything, Chinese media as well as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, across the board for every way we can talk to young people. We do talk to every employer before they come on board, because we want to talk to them about special considerations for international students, just to help make it easier for everybody. One of those things is a focus on personal characteristics. If you think about what you really want from people in your workplace, so it might be friendly, able to communicate well, eagerness, enthusiasm, that kind of thing. That might be the stuff that you want over and above someone that already has experience. So that's something we really try and talk through with any employers, as well as potential relaxation of the hiring process. And a great example is the requirement for a lot of businesses to have RSA. If you're a person new to Australia, you don't know what an RSA is, let alone how to get one, or potentially have the money to go and get one. And so this is something that we've talked to the employers to say, is that something that's absolutely necessary for you to have in your job ad? Because it's immediately putting up a barrier to people applying. But is it something that you can request or get organised after the interview stage? Or you can support the students with that once you get them on board. The other thing is, because we know you get lots of job applications, and so your quick way of assessing things, international students might end up in the no pile because, for example, they don't have a cover letter or the resume doesn't look exactly right. So we have talked to employers about how can we make sure that international students get some consideration. So the employers that have come on board have done things like have an exclusive email address that students can apply to, or created a specific landing page that's just for international students to come through, just so they can they have that extra layer of consideration. Now, getting on board is really quite easy. Like I said, it's free. And what we need from businesses is a few assets like your logo, a photograph. We've got this example on the screen now, which is for one of the aged care providers, and just put up this one because it's kind of a good example of what we were just talking about with the special considerations. So a business description, position description, the kind of roles that you've got available. So you can see here they've got a couple of roles. We've got some companies that have got up to 6 or 7 roles available. So in aged care, for example, everything from enrolled nurses right through to kitchen hands or cleaners. Because again, with international students, you've got the difference in experience, but also some students new to Australia, for example, if they're studying English, might not have good English yet. But cleaning roles or kitchen hand roles are certainly applicable to them. So, you can think about the kind of roles that you've got available. And then in this example, they have, under the section of what you're looking for, they've really thought about those personal attributes, like I said, so not necessarily focusing on the things that you have to have. And then again, they have listed up some of the things you'll need, but in these examples, it's like some of these roles might require things like certificates, but others it's just like, and you'll be trained on the job. Just trying to remove those barriers. And then again, in that how to apply section, they've created an email and a phone number for international students to call up so that they can, like I said, have that extra layer of consideration. And then the final little tab is the casual or part-time, so that students know that what the options are. So pretty easy, and Larisi will hold everyone's hand through that process to get you online, and we can turn it on and off, as I said, as you require, or update it with different roles that become available. Just quickly, I talked about some of the cultural differences with applying for jobs, but when it comes to cultural differences in the workplace and making sure people feel welcome, but also that the workplace runs smoothly, just a couple of quick little tips. Names, we know some names can be quite complex. I don't know if you've met someone from Sri Lanka, for example, their names are very, very long, but make an effort to use their names. It's okay to ask again and again how to pronounce it properly. They may end up with an Aussie nickname if they're okay with that, but that's just a really lovely thing to do to settle people in nicely. Small talk in a lot of cultures, small talk in the workplace is not the done thing, like you're at work to work. Whereas in Australia, we're very much a relationship-based culture, and sometimes some nationalities might need reassurance that it's okay and that building relationships and chatting to your colleagues, provided you still do the work, is still part of working. Again, that's a similar cultural differences when it comes to meetings, sharing information, talking to superiors, that kind of thing. So it's really good to be clear about expectations and context of meetings and the ability to speak up, share ideas, that kind of thing. And the last thing is language. As I obviously demonstrate, we speak very fast. The Aussie accent can be hard to understand, particularly if you're a new arrival. But also we speak a lot of slang, and as an example, we have an office of 12 staff, 6 of whom come from overseas and 6 different nationalities. And we quite often have a laugh after our meetings because we turn and say, now, what bit didn't you understand? And it's always picking up a phrase of Aussie slang or something like that. Bob's your uncle was a hilarious one a couple of years ago because we had a staff member go, why did people talk about this person called Bob? Who there's no Bob on staff. And so there's been some really interesting things that that can lead to misunderstandings, and you don't want that in your workplace. Just something to be mindful of. So my last slide is just key takeaways, and to invite any questions. But key takeaways are: it's a free platform for businesses and students. It can be turned on and off, as I said. We just ask to have a conversation with you so we can talk through the position requirements and what the recruitment process might be, to, like we said, to enable that consideration of international students and their particular circumstances. We know international students are very resilient people. They've made the big decision to come here, step out of their comfort zones. So we know they're eager to learn and to be part of the Australian workplace culture. So, you bit of hand holding, you can't go wrong. It's easy. We'd happy to take any questions now, but I've got Larisse's email address up there. Email us if you want to know more or want to get on board. We will follow up with everyone on this presentation with some information about how to get on board, and then hopefully welcome a good number of you onto our Job Shop platform. So thank you. If you've got any questions, let us know.
Thanks, Jodie. Does anyone have any questions that they want to jump in on from our group that's online? No, that's okay. I've got some questions. So Matt, that might I might be asking a question that someone's thinking, or maybe it might unlock a question in someone else. So if people do have questions, just as I said, just sort of just jump in or just pop it in the chat. So I think it's really interesting, the changing markets that are coming into. I think people have lots of kind of, they have a preconceived idea as to what an international student looks like. So is that a challenge for employers, do you think, in terms of they think it looks like, that this is what an international student is and then this is the reality? Is that, has that?
Yeah, I think so, because there are some countries where English is very much a second language, and so I think that's why people potentially might not think of international students as an opportunity. But if you look at India now being our #1 market, English is very strong with the Indian students, and a lot of students anyway, to even get their student visa, have to have a level of English. So yeah, I think it presents a lot of opportunities. The increased number of Latin American coming in as well, like Larissa here is Brazilian. Culture is very similar to us as well, so presents some great opportunities.
And with that change, sorry, David, do you have a question? Go for it.
Yeah, sorry, Linda. I was just going to ask, Jodie, great presentation, by the way. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. I was going to ask, the majority of your users or students, do they tend to apply for work during their study education, or is it mostly after? Because I'm not sure what the rules are in South Australia, but in New South Wales, there's a limit on how many hours you can work when you're studying.
Yeah, I did cover that. I'm sorry if that was unclear, but it's the same deal across Australia, David. The student visa allows students to work 48-hour fortnights during study periods, but unlimited hours when they're on study breaks. So over summer, for example, if you're a uni student, you get your 3 months off, you can work full time in that time.
And
Yeah.
do you find that most of the students are looking for work as soon as they get over here, or do they?
Yeah. The Job Shop platform, we actually created it, and one of the reasons why we talk so much about considerations for international students was because we allowed students to start applying for jobs before they'd even left their country. And so job applications in front of employers may not even have had an Australian phone number yet, which was another reason why we tried to make that recruitment process a bit easier. But yeah, a lot of students work. Some need to support themselves. Others are because they want an Australian experience. They want to meet Australians. They want to get into the workplace culture. Some try to get work in their fields to help them in the future. It's actually quite interesting with a lot of cultures too, in that because it's not been a thing that you do, this working part-time, in hospo, say, while you're studying, it's really interesting for students to realise that and then go, oh, okay, and the value adds making them more a well-rounded person. So when they finish their degrees or their qualifications, they can say all this other experience that they've obviously learned, the teamwork, communication skills, all that kind of stuff. But, we have examples of high school students that, because students come here from as young as sort of year 4, year 5, actually, but high school students understanding at school that suddenly all their Australian classmates are getting part-time jobs in cafes and, McDonald's and stuff. And they're like, oh, well, maybe I'll do that too. Not that they even necessarily need to, but then realise what a great opportunity is to talk English, to meet more Australians. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of students work part-time.
Great. And I was actually going to ask a question about the hours as well. So good lead in, David. So I think we have, like that 48-hour things come back in, and I didn't realize that was only during study period, and then it's unlimited non-study period. How, if I'm an employer, is that something that I have to keep aware of, or is that the student's responsibility? And I'm just thinking of it in terms of, depending on the student, the study period can be very different, like trimesters with some universities, some private colleges, running over those non-traditional sort of study periods as well. So how do you understand what a study period is and when your employee could work?
Yeah, it's very much a responsibility of both parties, to be honest. But the student is going to have to be communicating to the employer. I mean, with a lot of employers, particularly your industries, the rosters are done in advance. So if they're smart, they'll be getting in to say, hey, in this period. So for example, we're in a study break now. These students should have been saying something a while ago to say, there's 2 weeks in September where I can work full time if you've got work available.
Then if the employer needs, students can get letters from the education providers saying, I'm on holidays this period from this day to this day.
Okay, and so that's a good tip, obviously, then for someone, an employer, around making sure they're, not taking advantage of the situation, that they can demonstrate, look, I've fulfilled my responsibility. I've got this letter.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and so, and you're right in that there's different times of study breaks. So a trimester student will have a shorter break over Christmas, for example. The vet students start earlier in the new year, like the intake is in February, where the uni students don't go back till the end of February, so or early March. So different.
Great. I think it's really interesting, that advice around the cultural differences. I think around not understanding that a cover letter may not be used in certain countries, the lack of experience because you physically can't work, legally can't work. And then also to that tip you're talking about, because I think, I've been on recruitment panels previously where you do have people applying from internationals, and you're like, I don't understand why this person is applying, because they haven't given a cover letter to provide the context of I'm coming to study. So I think that they're really insightful information. Are you guys able to, if I've registered on Job Shop, this is something I'm really interested in exploring. does Larisi, is she someone who I can turn to for advice? Do you provide resources to help me be a better employer of international students?
That's a good question, and something we're actually working on.
Right.
As we've realised, one of the things that we would love to do is help with that connection of employers and students. So that's a project we've got on our agenda. We actually got some extra funding from the government to do that this year. So looking forward to that, and hoping to connect with a lot of employers to get them on board with that program. But yes, to answer your question, we do take a lot of calls just at the moment on an ad hoc basis, and do try to help where we can.
Great. And just, final question for me is the job shot. Do you need, obviously don't need to have a live vacancy in terms of I need to employ someone in the next 2 weeks. This is something that you can put up that you're really open to employing international students should and for people to submit their CVs and their interest ahead of a position becoming available.
Yeah, correct. We do have some employers that are trying to keep a pool of students that they can tap into. And so we just need to make that clear in the job ad. Yeah.
Great. Okay, does anyone else have any questions out there in cyber world? That's all right. There's lots of opportunity to follow up anyway. If great to have Larisi's contact up there. I'm sure people have something will spark. But thank you so much. I think it is a really fascinating space for many of us employers to go into, because you do think that international students kind of take care of themselves through their own networks into, businesses that really facing, like they tend to deal with international students as part of the general nature of their business anyway. So I think Job Shots sounds like a really great way of extending the opportunity, not just for international students, but also for employers to start engaging what is no doubt a workforce that is really eager to contribute meaningfully and in a really positive way to a business, and is very loyal and looking for all of those connections. You talked about being well-rounded, getting the experience of Australian life. So they're not just coming just to make the cash to pay the rent, which is, I think, some of the, the ideas that it is, but they're actually looking to really use it as a way of becoming part of a wider society. And I think that's really exciting for businesses. So thank you very much.
One thing, Linda, I forgot to mention the careers tour. Sorry, David, I know you're talking but one of the things that we do is careers tours to regional areas, and these are for students that are looking for post-study opportunities. They've applied for their graduate visa, which gives them really generous post-study work rights, and we know there's lots of opportunities for them in regional areas, a lot of opportunities for career growth and warm welcomes from communities, but they don't understand that because the opportunity to explore regional areas is quite often not a possibility for students. So we've been taking tours. Larisi's taking a tour next week to the Limestone Coast area. So if you've got any of your members in the Limestone Coast area, on that tour, she's got a number of chefs or hospitality management students that are looking for work. And so we'd welcome them to join us on the expo that we have, employer expo that we have for student networking at that event. So that's next week on the 27th of September in Mount Gambier and Narracourt. So
excellent.
You want to know more? Larisi's your gal.
Yeah, great. And if any other regional businesses are interested in what opportunities might crop up, just contact us at TICSA anyway. We can always put you on to Study Adelaide to find out what those opportunities might be. Thank you, Larisi and Jodie. That was fantastic. And we certainly look forward to working with you guys more too into this space as well, and around the employer of the business perspective or positioning into what's a really exciting workforce group for South Australia. So we're now going to take a very similar but quite a different tact with David, who's going to talk to us about GoTo, which is a brand spanking new, launched just 3 weeks ago, innovative solution for bridging the gap between employers and international workers. Working holiday makers we know how fundamental they are to so much of Australia's economy, and there's been a lot of conversation about getting working holiday makers back because they are a really pivotal workforce for us. And just in the last 6 months of last year, 112,000 working holiday maker visas were granted. And so your ideal candidate could just be a click away with GoTo. David Talent, and perfect name for dealing in talent recruitment, David, is the director and founder of GoTo. David is a British entrepreneur who co-founded GoTo after moving to Australia from the UK 4 years ago. He was a working holiday maker himself, and so he realised early on that travellers needed a platform to overcome the obstacles and make the most of their experience in Australia. And then that's when he set out to create GoTo, which is an all-in-one mobile app, and something that we're really excited about from a business perspective. So I'm going to hand over to you, David.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you very much. And thanks again, Jodie. It was an awesome presentation. Really enjoyed it. Pleasure to be here, guys. We joined the TIXA membership a few weeks ago, so still very fresh, still getting to know everyone. I mentioned to the guys before everyone jumped in that I have a soft spot for Adelaide. I'm based in Sydney and I lived in Sydney for most of my time in Australia. But any distant family I have over here lives in Adelaide, so I have a real soft spot for the place. So I'll just share my screen and we can dive in. Yeah, as Linda said, there's a lot of synergy between the Jodie's platform and ours. But a few key differences as well. So looking forward to going through them. And if anyone has any questions throughout, please feel free to just jump in. We can kind of go in whichever direction we want. But yeah, GoTo. I moved over here to Australia just over 4 years ago now, and realized quite early on that there wasn't one centralized platform for backpackers to access all of the key products and services and pieces of information they need to make the experience more simple, streamlined, enjoyable. There are a few challenges that I think are quite common among working holiday makers and students and travelers in general. And so what we set out to do was to create an all-in-one comprehensive free app that gave backpackers everything they need in one place. And so instead of a wide range of fragmented solutions to help people make friends, find work, get information, get recommendations, GoTo is the ultimate guide for backpackers to find everything they need in one place. And the benefit to businesses is that they have access to a huge international talent pool long before they actually require employment. So hopefully we can go through a few of those points today, but our kind of motto is connecting businesses to casual workers quickly and cost effectively. So it's a low-cost solution for businesses to get staff quickly. And kind of that description encapsulates our vision, which is fearless travel. You know, I felt a lot of anxiety and overwhelm and intimidation before I moved to Australia, and I consider myself as someone who's quite confident. So when I think about people who maybe aren't as confident, moving to Australia has been a life-changing thing for me personally, which is why I feel so passionate about speaking to the value in taking that risk and being open-minded to a better life, to a better lifestyle. If you know, a lot of travelers I've spoken to over the last few years have always wanted to move to Australia. They've always wanted to go and study in a place like Adelaide or live in a place like Sydney, but there's a fear that stops them. And so our mission is all around helping people to overcome those fears, that it's not actually that difficult to find work. It's not actually that difficult to, you know, to understand where to go and what to do and places to stay. And so everything we do at GoTo is geared towards helping people with that transition. Specifically with the mobile app. Our backstory. So I'm from the northwest of England. I thought it was interesting when Jodie said that Australians speak fast and are hard to understand. I think that definitely fitted my description when I first moved over here. I had to adapt my accent a little bit. So if you guys ever heard me on the phone to friends back home, you'd think I was a completely different person. But yeah, I'm from the UK. Christina, my co-founder, she's from Germany. So she has her own story. She suffered her own challenges. And Sean Casey is our creative director. He's got millions and millions of followers on Instagram and TikTok. So we have a lot of reach with international travelers. He's Irish. I know a lot of the Irish tend to work in industries like construction and manufacturing. So if there are any of those employers in there, then we've got enormous reach with that community. And so we've all kind of experienced our own challenges, which gives the app that authenticity and that originality, and we can kind of build features we know will add value to the vast majority of international travelers, whether you're a student or a working holiday maker or a skilled worker who comes over just to find employment. So yeah, just in a one sentence, GoTo is an all-in-one work and travel app that connects backpackers to people, places, and jobs. For these reasons, 82% feel lonely, 76% feel unsupported, and 76% feel unsupported, and 72% struggle to make connections. So there's a real problem that we're trying to solve. And again, just in a kind of a few bullet points, that all-in-one solution where we help them connect to like-minded people. The algorithm will suggest people who are a similar age, nationality, interests. When you onboard the app, there's a list of interests. And so instead of you connecting to people who you probably wouldn't, kind of go for a beer after work with, we're really trying to help people connect to other travelers with whom they would never meet unless there was a solution like GoTo. The second one is find work anywhere in Australia, which obviously is where the value for employers comes in. At the end of the day, on a working holiday, the name is in the title. It's a working holiday, and so to do all the fun stuff that you want to do, to go out and have all the fun, or to do all the traveling, the foundation upon which you can do that is work. So it's such an important aspect, and it's the thing that underpins our entire business model. Is connecting good quality, high quality staff to the most compliant businesses in Australia. And everything we do, which is why I speak quite a lot to the social and the travel related mission, is because that's what enables us to build that community of job seekers long before they need to find work. So yeah, there's recommendations on everything from where to go, what to do, places to stay, which is why it's great working with TIC SA, because we can leverage a lot of that content from South Australia and make it a lot more accessible for people to go there. And then the benefit to employers is so I'll just speak to the job platform. So the mobile app is for travelers. It's a free mobile app packed with social, travel, and work related value. And there's a desktop version for employers, which we launched about 6 weeks ago. And that is designed to help employers in some key sectors: construction, hospitality, office support, agriculture, industrial and manufacturing, tap into the community of job seekers that we have in the mobile app. And it works in the same way as a traditional job platform, except we've designed it hopefully to make it much more easy to use and intuitive, and also much more valuable from a cost perspective. One of the things we realized when we sort of when we got a lay of the land with the market was that a lot of the options for you to advertise as an employer are very, very expensive and don't always give you a high return on investment. And so for us, we wanted to mitigate all those risks for employers and give employers some of these benefits you can see here. So reduced screening time. I think in the last presentation, Jody mentioned that it's all well and good advertising on a Seek or an Indeed, and they're great platforms. But if you have to spend half a day screening all of the applications you get, and by the end of it, you don't get very many that meet your criteria, that's not a great return on investment in terms of time. Reduced cost. So with GoTo, it's entirely free for you to advertise jobs. We'll get into that in a moment. We're confident, given the size of our community and how easily it is for us to reach travelers before they get here, when they get here, and add value to them all year round, that it's completely free for employers to advertise whenever someone applies for your roles. We've created our own version of a CV in the app, which essentially gives you as an employer all of the information, all of the critical information you need prior to making a decision whether or not to hire them or to interview them. So things like, do you have your own transport? What visa are you on? When is your preferred start date? What tickets or licenses do you have, or are you looking to acquire? And there's a small fee of $5 to connect to an applicant. So instead of you having to pay hundreds or even in some cases thousands of dollars up front with no guarantee of receiving any value, we've flipped that model on its head and said that you can advertise on GoTo for free when we provide you with some value, i.e. the candidates. There's a small fee of $5 to connect with them. And that's what it looks like from a candidate's perspective. So your job ad would look very similar to this. I'm just conscious of time, so I'll skip this slide. And yeah, just covered that. So the monetization for us is we're really looking for employers with high turnover. You know, casual workers, contract workers, temporary workers, they tend to be much more transient. And so our kind of niche is the backpacker, the working holiday maker, the student who is looking for a role for 2-3 months, and then we'll probably move on to a new state or city or region. Yeah, so that's the kind of roles that we tend to see employers advertise on GoTo. Just sure if I can. Oh yeah, there we go. So where we are in our journey, Linda mentioned that we launched 3 weeks ago. We spent 12 months developing the platform, a lot of challenges along the way on the technical side. So on the 31st of August, we launched our MVP, first version. We had spent months and months prior to launching, promoting it on social media, getting people to sign up for early access, partnering with some of the big youth travel and tourism brands, so that when we did go live, we had reach with those kind of backpackers. And in just over 3 weeks now, we've gotten nearly 7,000 downloads from travelers. Now, not all of those will be job seekers. I think about 30% of them are active job seekers. But in 3 weeks, we've managed to get 7,000 downloads, and we're getting great feedback every day from people, from businesses and travelers, on how we can improve and what features they would value. So very, very open to feedback if anyone gets a chance to download it, and play around with the job platform as well. And yeah, just a bit of a summary of some of our partners. When people say to us, what is your key difference, or what is your key, point of difference with another job platform? Why would I trust yours to advertise jobs on there? Aside from the economic viability of it, part of the reason is because we're in a position to add so much value to a wide range of youth travel and tourism brands that they have agreed and will continue to promote GoTo to their audience that they've spent decades building. And so we're able to cultivate a community, as I said before, of job seekers through lots and lots of social and travel related value. And then we assume that if if they've used the app and found value in it for 6 months prior to even moving to Australia, and then when they arrive, if they're traveling, that they will not look anywhere else to apply for jobs. And so some of our partners, we recommend the Greyhound, the national coach operator, Juicy, if people need a vehicle rental. This is part of our information to travelers, and obviously Tixa on that list as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Wanted to wrap up. I know that we've not got long, so I wanted to give enough time for questions. If anyone has any.
Thanks, David. Does anyone have any questions? There we go. We've got Rebecca from Journey Beyond, who would like to know how they can contact you.
There should have been a slide at the end there for how to contact me. Let me try and get that up.
And if not, we will share your contact details with everyone. And also too, what we'll do is we'll give both David and Jody, everyone who's registered, your contact details as well, so that they can follow up as well But yeah.
Wonderful.
So thanks, David. I think when we first had a conversation about your app, I think it is really exciting in terms of, you know, just the enthusiasm around working holiday makers and the value that they present to the tourism industry, but also to the Australian economy and workforce more broadly. And I think, you know, much like with international students, there's some real preconceived ideas of what a working holiday maker is, as well as for, no doubt, working holiday makers, what employment in Australia looks like. And, you know, we don't have to go to too many cinemas to see great, terrifying films about working in regional Australia. And so I think what really excites me about GoTo is that confidence as an employer around that pre-screening, or, you know, you're getting your ads is reaching people that meet what your requirements are. So it takes out a lot of that guesswork that you might have to make. But I think also too, more importantly, and particularly for businesses that are based more regionally and do really rely on this type of a workforce, a bit of reassurance to those job seekers that this company is okay. I'm not, you know, being led into the depths of the Australian outback where I'm going to be robbed and murdered or what have you. So I think that's really exciting. I think the stats are really exciting, really interesting too, that you know, because you think of working holiday makers as quite gregarious people, and, you know, it's a big risk to step out and go overseas and work, and that 82% feel lonely. I think that's, you know, a real insight that I wouldn't have thought. And so it's really great that connection's coming. In terms of your 7,000 downloads, where are most of those at the moment? Are they do you have any data on that? Are they in Australia? Are they overseas? Or
Yeah, so it's about 70% in Australia, 30% overseas.
Yeah.
Mostly Sydney, Melbourne, but we do have quite a few in SA and WA as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, you know, you're saying 30% active job seekers, but you're really targeting a lot of that cohort is people in that pre-planning phase. Yes, I'm going to come to Australia. Yes. And again, I think that's a real benefit to reach that market before they come. You can actually really influence where they're going to be going. So there's a flow-on benefit for tourism here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's, you know, I think the value of the app probably diminishes over time if you once you've, you know, kind of made your connections and you've your network expands, you've kind of got the connections you need to find work quite easily after, you know, 2-3 years. It's the challenges for people before they arrive, and it's the uncertainty of how, you know, where do I find work, in which state do I want to go, how do I do farm work, what's all the information surrounding it, what's 88 days, you know, how long can I work for the same employer. So kind of creating that sense of clarity, I suppose, will give people confidence that it's not actually as daunting as or as overwhelming as you think. The information is there, you know, the employers who will pay you correctly and on time, and who will, you know, who have job opportunities in the sector that you're looking for work, they all exist. What doesn't exist at the moment is the platform to connect them together. So if we can help them connect to people, places, information, and jobs, that's kind of our mission. And, you know, as an employer, to have access to that community on an ongoing basis, and not just to be able to advertise jobs, but to also see the all of the users in the app who are open to work. That will be on the next release, so you can be more proactive with your recruitment. Rather than just advertise and wait, you can sort of say, right, these are all the users in South Australia who are open to work in this industry, and you can send a notification straight to their phone to say, hey, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. You know, invite you to apply.
That's excellent. And I think, yeah, as you know, that immediate connection, but also too, we do know that a lot of employers specifically target working holiday makers, but with the way that working holiday makers travel nowadays, you know, once upon a time, you used to have a relationship with a backpacker accommodation or somewhere where you'd be really, and building those relationships that way through into that cohort. But we know that working holiday makers are not necessarily backpackers, but even if they are, they're staying in vastly different types of accommodation now. So this place to go to immediately connect. And it sounds really simple and easy from what you guys have built, and I'm sure you've got support if anyone gets stuck with stuff. But also too, I think that that critical point that I don't have to pay to advertise my job, but if you send me, I get all of these, list of potential applicants, and I can look at a level of their detail and go, actually, I want to know more about that person. And then that's when that fee is paid, and, it keeps it really affordable. But you do have an offer specifically for TIC SA members at the moment. Right. Did you want to run through that? Yeah.
So effectively what it is, to demonstrate the value of the platform and that we can provide a consistent stream of good quality applicants depending on your sector and how often you hire. There's 10 free connections for every TIC SA member who signs up. So you'll get those first 10 connections completely free. And again, the connection isn't when someone applies. It's when someone applies, you review their CV. If they meet your criteria, if you're interested in what their resume says, then you get to connect. So you've got full control. And as I say, we want to try and make sure that over those 10 connections, you get access to some really, really good people.
Right. Excellent.
And I'll just mention as well, there's a lot of stuff we can do ad hoc if there are members with urgent job requirements. As I say, there are ways where we can message. I think Jodie spoke to it before with her email. We can send notifications to, users who are in South Australia or who've specified that they're looking for work in a certain industry. So we'd be happy to engage in something like that. I'm contactable, all the time. If anyone wants to reach out to me, they can. If they need support or help, please let me know. And if there's something really urgent in terms of a job requirement, then feel free to give me a shout and we'll do what we can for you.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you, David. And that offer, to access that, you just need to put in a code, sign up using TIC SA10. If that drops off of anyone's memory, just get in contact. I'll send it to them again. Thank you so much, David. Thank you for joining us from beautiful, warm Sydney, warmer than here, unless that cool change has swept in through you guys. Thank you to Jodie and Larissa again for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, taking time out of your day, or to watch it back if you're watching this back. We do really appreciate it. We love any opportunity to connect with our community and to bring new information and intel and solutions to you. We will be sending a recording of today's session out to you, and if you have any questions, we are just a phone call or an email away, and we're always happy to talk. So thank you.